Excuse me, y'all. Got high pollen down here today, and I'm kind of still because of that pollen. So, Thursday night, another night of questions and concerns and discussion. I'm Blackie, if you didn't know, and tonight we'll be talking about whatever you want to talk about. Bring up your topics, and I'll be glad to throw it back at you as I can. Hello, Tiny Titan. Good evening. Hello, Gray Wolf. Through failure, we succeed. Hello. Justin, you still feeling bad, bro? Robert Owens, good evening. Dr. Robert, hello. Guardsman, 134, hello there. Hello, Blaine. How you doing? JB, good evening. Captain Bar, Illinois River, cool. RC, good evening. Tiny Titan, how much bank line do you carry cordage in general? Well, I had a set pre-made up 550 bank line, paracord. And then normally I carry like 20 to 50 feet, depending of number 36 bank line, just hanked up in a hank. Because most of my tie projects, the paracord will work for that, and I'm going to reclaim that. On the other hand, I'm tying it and cutting it, and I'm not coming back for it, or I'm sacrificing it, or whatever. That's bank line. So I'm carrying about somewhere around 50 feet. You know, generally what I carry, hanked up. Todd Vance, good evening. The questioner, is a bow a great survival weapon then compared to a gun? Pros and cons of a bow. Absolutely fantastic survival weapon. One, you can easily manufacture every part of a bow from your environment. You cannot manufacture every part of a gun, including ammunition, primers, and etc. So the guns quickly become reserved for the jobs only a gun can do, and the bow becomes the go-to for the small game hunting and everything else in such a situation. You can create all the components of a bow set from the environment. You can't do it with that. And so as long as you got ammunition, gun is superior for range and etc. As long as you got ammunition. And after that, it becomes an awkward club. Whereas a bow, I can make more arrows. I can harvest from my game sinew and stuff to make bone strings. I can, you start a production line. Bone can serve as arrowheads until you can get flint or learn how to get it, or cut up car bodies or signs with a pair of 10 sticks to make arrowheads. So there's a lot of stuff can be done. So between the two, having a bow and learning how to build and use a bow is a really good idea. Okay, Justin, sorry you feel bad. Diane, good evening. Crow, good evening. Worm Wrangler, howdy. Jonathan Frisbee, hey, brother, how you doing? Bassmaster, good evening to Mississippi. Anthony Grimes, hello to Ohio. Benton Leslie, good evening to rainy Georgia. Yeah, y'all getting rain. It went above us. We got just barely little sprinkles, literally. And then the county above us got a little bit of storm. Now that's moved into Georgia, and y'all getting the rain now. Branch Preparedness, good evening to you. Awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of new people up there at the Silver Wolf Gathering. Y'all got to forgive me. I got a little sinus drainage going on because of that pollen. And it's really bloomed big down here all at once. And I'm a little bit tongue-tied because of it. So just hang with me. Yeah, Gray Wolf, I understand that. I mean, yeah, spending some time out there. Through failure, we succeed. Blackie, what is your opinion on Skinner knives? I've been looking at picking up an old-timer sharp finger for this reason. They're very good for that. And in my youth, all of us had buck 110s and those sharp fingers. because they're very, very useful, especially if you're trying to save the hide for something. That small fine tip blade does a really good job of getting in there and doing it cleanly. So yeah, they're a worthwhile thing to have in the kit. Buck 12, hello to North Georgia. Jeff Conley, good evening. Gordon, hello, Blackie. Is a mummy sleeping bag okay without an underquilt? If you're talking about in a hammock, it just compresses it, what you're laying on. And so you got to reduce your temperature rating to a quarter of what it was. So a bag that's rated to 0, if you lay in a hammock in it, it's good to about 40. After that, you start feeling cold on that side. That's what the underquilt does. It traps heat on the other side. Otherwise, you're compressing it down. And since you have air circulation under, and why don't I do that when I'm laying on a ground pad? Why would crushing it then too? Yes, but you're not losing to the air on the downside. Plus, in the curve of a hammock, your body's sitting. You're the hot thing. You're the 100-degree hot thing. There'll be a convective air current coming from the bottom, rising up because heat rises around it. So you've got a constant current of air on the outside of your hammock, sucking away heat. Think of it like water flowing by. And so if you don't have insulation on the outside, you're just going to be cold. I mean, it really will. I would rather have a thin sheet on top and a heavy underquilt. I'll be warmer, to be honest. Gray Wolf, or Blackie, are you familiar with the Rogers Rangers carbine? Yep. Short brown Bess or service gun. Yeah, in his reenactment. I've had a Bess, but I've never had the Ranger carbine. Good evening, Mr. John Kennedy. How you doing? Eric, thank you very much. Gardner, what's your thought on horses? If you got the space and you got the area and you got time to train and work with them, yeah, I'd prefer to have a mule over a horse, to be honest. They're not nearly as skittish. They're not as easily fooled. And you ask me, put them side and side. A mule is usually more intelligent than a horse. Just by experience, where I've dealt with both of them, horses may be faster running, but mules are better for a companion. And world go to hell, whoever's got horses is going to have a real advantage. I am going. Yes, Bill. I am going to Georgia Bookcraft in November. In fact, I'm supposed to be teaching a class up there. Mr. Johnny, good evening. Beast of Bray Road, good evening. Okay, Kenneth, Blackie, hope you're going well. In a long-term bug out, you only have a bow. How many arrows would you take with you? At least 20. I'd make up a good quiver of about 20. Because with 20, I usually got time to make more. As this break, I can start the supply chain going. So, Anthony Grimes, what pack do you like for a 1-2 day trip? If you're not talking about my rucksack, then I say the German Alpine rucksack's what I like. Works very, very well. Gray Wolf, yeah, it can be. It's a 12 gauge shotgun is what it is. It's a Flintlock 12 gauge. And you can make flints if you've got the sources up there. You can learn to nap your own flint. You can reharden the frizzen in a blacksmith set, and you can build black powder from scratch if you've got skill, because you can get local resources to do it. And then it'll be melting lead or whatever, so you've got a shotgun. And like I've said in the past, super long term, the only gun that will be functioning if today X plug in your favorite disaster. If in 2023 your favorite disaster hit, I can tell you what gun will be the #1 gun in demand in 2100. Flintlocks. All the rest of it be gone. Because a blacksmith that knows what he's doing can build a flintlock. Can't build any of the others, even if he wanted to. The only gun that'd be left would be a flintlock. It's the reason it's been around for 400 years. JB, okay, cool. Kodak, hello. Do you think we need to be more community based during the major depression? Do you think an economic coming in the future? We're in it now. And yes, a community based thing is very, very usable. I mean, my day it was families. So he had cows, he had pigs, he had row crops, she did this, he did that, and we all had a barter system going amongst ourselves. For the ones, the ladies that were fantastic at making all kinds of jellies and jam, they'd make extra and they'd trade it. For the people that were butchering hogs, making bacon or whatever, they trade it. And so that community, that family community, and the church community, and the greater community, we did as much trading among ourselves as we went to town to buy stuff. So yes, I think a community base is very, very necessary. Evan, good evening. Okay, Mitch, Blackie, how many pocket knives do you normally carry at one time? At least two. I have my little bitty one on my keychain, and I've got my regular one. If I'm going to the field, there'll normally be a belt knife thrown in there, but at least two. Chuck Miller, good evening. Sanford Brown, hello. Common Sense Karen, hello. Gulf Coast Pine Belt, you saw my story on Make 'em Cry. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Jeff Conley, no, I will not be up there at the Piedmont. I wish I could, but I've got so many things falling in place in October and in November, and I just don't have the funds to do all of it. To be honest, I plugged in things, and by the time I got here and I found these things popping up, you know, I just was out of time and resources to be able to go. Maybe next year I'll try. Andy, good evening, Georgia. Guardsman, a bicycle shop can make an air gun, but can make a good air gun. That's the thing. A muzzleloader with a compressed air tank on the back of it, just a big air gun. There was a guy here in Alabama that he was making 50 caliber air guns that he could take buffalo with. It had a little small pressurized scuba tank in the back, and it was like an AR trigger group. Top that was a muzzle loading barrel. He rigged up to it with trigger pull and released, and he'd muzzle load it. And 50 caliber barrel and ball for that. And he took a buffalo with it as a demonstration. He'd shoot steel plate at 30, 40 yards and he'd pancake it, just work for thin. So I think he was getting up like 1,200 feet per second out of that 50 cal. So yeah, he could take a lot of stuff with it. Robert Oakley, glad you got a chance to go out. Song in the South, greetings. Hello, sir. Well, all right, questioner. The thing is, it can be. It can be. Being able to work leather and etc. will be an in demand. Definitely. The harder question is tan yard. Who's going to set up and start doing tan? Back in the day, any kind of heavy working leather that have these big pools in the ground, basically like a swimming pool, you'd have to soak the big cow hides and stuff in it for days or weeks or even months. And then you had to have guards, because once it started getting close to time where it's about ready to be sold and finished, people would steal them from you because they knew that you're in the last tank. It's leather. You're just finishing it. So I can get out there and steal it. So you had to have guards. The land that my wife's family owned up here just north of town had a tan yard as part of it. And so leather is fantastic as long as you get leather. But the other side of that coin is you got to find somebody that's producing leather. And I don't mean just skinning a buck. You know, you can sew buck skin like you sew regular cloth. But to make working heavy leather for saddles and stuff like that, that going to hook up with a tan yard to be able to make that. Because today all of that's industrialized. There's nothing local doing that. I don't even know if there's any left in the United States still doing it. But that's a very heavy, long-term application to produce that kind of leather product to make bags and, you know, belts and usable stuff beyond just clothing. That's going to be tough. You can't, if you just take an old cow and you try to process it, brain tan it, you don't end up with heavy saddle leather. You end up with something like moose leather. It's thick, but it's not nearly as durable. It's the process that makes it that hard, durable leather. Okay, let's see. Donald, well, thank you very much. Forrest Witch, good evening. I got to speed up and catch up here. I'm way behind. Blackie, are you familiar with a Tallahassee, Alabama muzzleloading carbine? I'm not. Tallahassee rings a bell, but I'm not familiar with that. Buckeye, what do you think of oilskin hats? They shed water well. They're kind of hot, but they do shed water well. And if you're in a environment that, especially in snow country, very worthwhile. Great, if that's true. I mean, even the Native American, like you're talking about, one of the things that explorers talked about when they were going west is you'd start smelling it. If the wind was coming from the west and they were heading west, you'd smell a village because they're fleshing all those buffalo hides or whatever from miles downwind. You'd smell that smell, and they'd know they were coming up on a village. You know, one, you'd see smoke in the distance, and two, you'd smell it because they were constantly having to process leather. It constantly wore out and was constantly used. Guardsman, correct. Lewis and Clark had a Girardelli, I think was the name of it. They carried it out there and would shoot quite a few times, but it took 800 pumps on like a bicycle pump to charge it up. So they did that before they went marching in to show off to the Indians because they didn't want you there having to pump it up, pump it up, pump it up, pump it up, you know. It's amazing that thing went all the way out there and back, and as fragile as it must be, because it's a watchmaker to make an air gun for the precise fitting and everything in the day, because they didn't have neoprene seals like we have today. It was all friction fit or leather, and it's amazing how well that gun performed under all that difficulty getting there and back. Skipper, thank you for watching, sir. Questioner, I do not think we're heading to a possible collapse like that. I really don't. Look at the map, and there's 30-something states that are not collapsing and are actually growing stronger. So I don't see that. Now, I see a lot of cities that may have implosion coming because people are tired and they're leaving in droves. And yeah, I'm seeing a big revival, a reversal. 1926 or 24, that was the breakwater mark, where before that, more people lived in the rural area and the farms than lived in cities. After 26, it went even to even. And since then, it's actually everybody lives in cities and people live out. We're seeing a reversal of that now. Everybody's moving back out of the country and getting out. And so, and now with our modern communication like YouTube, Google, everything else, you can live on a farm in Iowa and get educated. You ain't got to go there to get such and such education. You can communicate like we're doing right now without having to travel so much. And so I see a future of people being more rural, and you see a loss of power of the big cities because people just go, I can live on 10 acres of my own land and be happy and make a living where I don't have to drive a 75-mile commute every day. So I'm thinking it's going to be a little twist around. Choir Boys Outdoor, good evening, brother. Glad to see you. Looking forward to camping with you. We got stuff to talk about when we get there. Tennessee Smoky, good evening. Randy, howdy. Yeah, Buckeye, I'm pretty sure the Amish do to some degree. I don't know how, but the actual big operation was called Tan Yard. And it, if I remember correctly, a vat was 3 or 4 feet deep, 18 feet across. And there were like 9 vats. And so you put the leather in and let them soak for so many days, take them out, wring them out, and put them into the next one. Take them out, wring them out, put them in the next one. I think the entire process for making heavy, like belt leather, took about 6 months. So it was, yeah, it was a moneymaker, but it was very time consuming. Gordon, actually, we were talking about that just recently. Us doing some canning now that's going to cool. And it looks like we're going to get a cold, wet winter, which means we'll get to go. He's got a kitchen that we can put camera and lights in and do canning on his channel. That is in the future. And we've been talking about that. Yeah, Gray about that. That's where they mad as a hatter because they were using beaver felt and they used mercury in it. And a lot of their processing used heavy metal for everything. There was, I forget what it was they put in to get the white color to their military, load bearing stuff. It was white dyed leather, and then they did a whitewash on top of that. But it was actually dyed white before it came out. And I forget what it was, but it was horribly toxic. And they talked about how the workers that worked would only live just a few years and they'd die of basically cancer. And people still, they were that desperate, they'd work. They'd come out and do it. Elvin, if you're looking to purchase a 50 caliber and it is a 490 or somewhere around to that, you can look at leeprecision.com and look in muzzleloading round ball molds. But just find out what your actual diameter is. They got a couple of variations of that. But if it's 50 caliber, it's a 490, which is typically what we use with a patch, or a 500. I would look at leeprecision.com. They make those. They'll be able to take care of you. Blackie, I know that you've been involved in historical reenactment in the past. What type of primitive frontier kit did you use? Okay. I had a Ted Cash tinderbox that carried fat wood shavings and cedar bark in it. I had a very nice fire steel. I had a about a 6 palm piece of a black English flint that I use as a flint striker. I had a custom knife that I showed before in videos. It was a Billy Watson based on a French lollipop tang trade knife. I had a D-shaped tin canteen. I had a powder horn, powder shot cup, etc. And then I had a small haversack about, that big. I carried my fire kit in, a wooden spoon, a tin cup, and a wooden noggin for all my meals and everything. And I carried around my waist, up under my long shirt, I carried a corn crib, which was about that wide by that long. It was simply a heavy, thick piece of canvas with a end on it that was open and too tight, so I could fill it with crushed corn, which was parched corn. And then I would tie the bag closed on that end and then pull it around my waist back like my kidneys and tie it in the front. And that was how you carried a food supply like that. 50 caliber flintlock or a 2 to chase 62 caliber. I normally did either Courrier de Bois or I did Scotch Highland that was over here to be a lone hunter. That was a basic kit. I had a long coat for the dead of winter. Most time I used a blanket coat. I also had a capote for being around rendezvous and stuff. Used Whitney blankets in the winter, and I used a thinner light wool blanket in the summer. That was basically my kit. Fake news. Good evening to South Florida. Woo. Y'all excuse me. Whatever that weed is down here, it is just bloomed everywhere, and it ain't yellow snow, but it's close. Yeah, plugging up everybody's signs, a little Vicks Vapor Rub. When you guys start getting a little old like me, you'll find this is the greatest thing in the world. You go to lay down at night, and you lay down, and your head plugs up instantly. You can take a little of that, dab it on your nose, and your head will open back up. Otherwise, you're laying there going, trying to breathe. Yeah. Yeah, Buck, I'm predicting this is going to be a cold, wet winter, so I would suggest go ahead and stock up. Randy, did Grouch get you using a kukris? Actually, I was using a kukris before I met him. And that was one of the things when we first went to the woods for the very first time together. We had done Living History. And he invited me to come down and said, we'll just camp out and not do Living History. I said, okay, I'll bring my woods clothes. And I came up wearing a jungle fatigue shirt, a pair of brown heavy canvas pants, and I had a kukri on my right hip, a U.S. Army canteen on my left hip, and had my gun. And he had the exact same outfit on. His kukri a little different from mine, but we were both had the same gear, you know. And he took one look at me and said, I think we're going to get along just fine. Yep, we had similar tastes and opinions. Ronald Hayes, hello to South Mississippi. Johnny, you're saying the persimmon seeds shaped like a shovel. Normally indicates a cold, wet winter. Oh no, Guardsman 134, walking pneumonia. I understand. Yeah, Guardsman 134. I drowned when I was 13, and it set up really bad pneumonia in my lungs. And this left lung got pretty badly scarred up because of it. And I had pneumonia several times since then. And then COVID didn't help. So I've got pretty good bit of damage all in the bronchial area and over there. And so it makes me short of breath. And there's times pollen stuff, you get any kind of congestion, and it's just like you just turn the world down. You just can't go. So I feel you. Ronald, who makes the kukri that you have? Mine was made by Kukri House. You can do a search on Amazon and look for Afghan issue, and it'll be by Gurkha House or Kukri House. There's another name. It comes out of Nepal. They're about 120, and it's going to be a tan leather sheath. The kukri will look very similar to mine, except it'll have, I think, 2 or 3 anchor pins holding the grips on. But that's by the same company, and that's a military issue one, so it's a good quality. You have to kind of be a little tickler because that Kukri House makes real kukris, and they also make a lot of tourist kukris too that are just meant to go on a wall. And so they don't clearly label them. You just look at it, man, that looks great. Yeah. And then you get home and you hit it and it comes apart in your hand. On the other hand, you get one that's really meant to be real. Like mine is called a panel, which means it's got a full tang. And it's a champura, I believe is the name of it, means chopper, think hatchet. And it's a villager. Villager means working knife. So if you ever see it on one thing that says a kukri villager, it means a working tool. It's not embellished. It ain't meant to be fancy. And therefore, it's a much higher chance as a working knife as opposed to a show or pretty knife. And these guys are just making these things up for, selling, usage, whatever. They're called commies, Kami, which we'd say blacksmith or knife smiths. And they make them up at speed. And as they're making it, they determine where if it is a flaw or something, it becomes a pretty one for display purposes, highly embellished. Well, that's kind of a giveaway that it's not really meant to be a using knife. And the working knife, they make so many of them because they sell them right out of the front of the store to workers there to use in their day-to-day jobs, like a working in the field. And so therefore those go that way. Buzz, thinking about adding an air mattress to your range roll. That'll work just fine. You can either get like a thermarest that's a self-inflator, or you can get one of those little bitty inflators that they're selling around now. You put a battery in and hit it and blow up an air mattress. Either one of those will work. Yeah. Guardsman, I understand that. There's times just breathing's a chore. Tennessee Smoky. Okay. I thought about digging out my rendezvous kit and stuff like that. But to be honest, I've given a lot of it away. James Bender, who does Waypoint Survival, is doing a really good series. And I gave him most of my clothes and quite a bit of my gear. And I don't have a lot of that gear left, to be honest, because I quit rendezvousing early 2000s. So it's been like maybe 20 years ago that I quit. And I had done it 20 years. I'd done it since the late 70s and I quit about 22, 23. And I've only used air a little bit here and there since, and I kind of just rolled it over and found people that were still doing it and wanted it, and etc. So I just don't have a lot of that kit right now that I can show. Bear still got a lot of his. I might talk to him, might do a little collaboration or something. Ron, yeah, I carry Vicks Vapor Rub on a lot of campouts just for that. Because you get around fire and the smoke hits you just wrong, and 9 times out of 10 it'll never bother. And then there'll be that one whiff it'll get me, and you just can't breathe. Sinuses just lock up, and I go take something for sinuses, and I dig out the Vicks Vapor Rub and touch and get my head to open back up where I can breathe. Billy Bird, well, hello there. Thank you. Let's see. What did I do recently that I'm trying to get ahead? Typically what I do is I take like Saturday and Sunday off, spend time with my wife, and then Monday, Tuesday, I'm shooting videos, editing and posting, and I have one come up on Wednesday. I do a live on Thursday, one come up on Friday. I drop in a special or whatever on Saturday, and then I have Sunday, and then the cycle starts again. But October's going to be so busy that I want to take a week off. And so I'm trying to get ahead. So the last couple of days I've been shooting a lot of videos and trying to go ahead and get them edited and posted. I want to be fully a week ahead. I really want to be 2 weeks ahead whenever I start October. And that way when I have to go off on all these trips, it's not so burden. I'm already a week ahead. You know what I'm saying? But I've been, the last 10 days, I have been shooting and editing every night. Me and Bear have been shooting and stuff, and so it's been. Somebody asked me today, so what was what was the video you posted last Friday? And I had to go look it up because that was 11 videos ago that I shot and edited. You know, it starts adding up, and so I just don't remember what we're talking about. I have to kind of go back and look. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about, and it really will. You know, I'm trying to get ahead, so y'all kind of bear with me. I'm trying to get ahead. That's cool, Ronald. Yeah, glad you did. Having those little extra pockets can make a difference. All right, Guardsman 134. Good night. Yeah, but the thing you got to remember, guys, is cats are meat eaters. And so that deposit is all dried blood fur. It stinks to high heaven when you cook it. Herbivores like cows and buffalo chips is just compressed grass. That's the reason it burns. So just a word to the wise, you know. I had a friend of mine one time that thought it would be a good idea. We had a burn barrel going out back, and it had a good deep bed of coals in it. And we were, cleaning up around the yard, getting rid of financial papers that needed more and didn't want to send them to a dump. We're burning them and all like that. And Hope changed the cat litter. And so she went and sat the bag out on the back porch and said, when you get a chance, take it to the thing. And I said, sure. Well, the friend didn't think about that. He thought, oh, heck, it's a garbage bag. It'll burn. So he snatched up that bag and threw it into that burn barrel. The neighbors still tell stories about that fall. Wow. It was impressive. So I don't think I want to cook ravioli over that. Just my 2 cents. Good evening, Todd Gibson. Todd, you going to be at the lake? First week in October, a few of us are getting together. It's not official, but if we're all going to be showing up. So if you want to, come on out. Ronald, yeah. If you're looking for one of the old 61 canvas butt packs, try the Kaufman's military surplus that I use. The phone number is 334-898-1770. And tell the lady that answers, always be one of the ladies, that Blackie sent you, and tell them you're looking for one of the old canvas butt packs, and then one of the shoulder straps that goes onto a canteen, the 2-quart canteen. I think that sets you up. Steve McLean, hello to Western Massachusetts. I hope y'all ain't gonna get some of that Lee, that hurricane coming up that way. Y'all aren't used to that. Y'all get nor'easters, but a hurricane's a little different than what y'all used to. Gordon, probably, yeah. You should be able to flip a pad around and do something like that. Yeah, the Jeff, the kukris come in all kinds of. The smallest one, that little bitty 5 incher, is called a bilton, and what it is, they have a sort of dried bilton jerky that they eat in that part of the world, and they take it like an old plug at the back, and they put it in their teeth and bite down, and they take that little kukri and saw it off, do a chewable size piece and gnaw on it. So that little bitty short kukri, that's a fish for, but it's just a small kukri. Use it as a knife. Good, Todd. Hope to see you there. Well, Justin, yeah. After I would say recommend drinking some sort of broth or something. That'll come back up easy. It might not be you're that hungry, you're just wanting to reload. So I'd start with some broth or something. Yeah, gray wolf. I had a friend of mine that was in the Air Force, and he was stationed somewhere in Alaska up there around one of the big Eskimo areas. And they had a weather station or some sort of installation he needed to be at. And he talked about how they had got a whale and were sharing it with the soldiers and letting them try it. And how they'd sit there and they'd saw it off of that ulu in bite-sized chunks and bite down and do it like that. He wasn't terribly impressed with it, but he said he was nice. He acted like it was good. He said, but he didn't want to do it again. I understand, but that's the thing. Out when he was up there teaching Arctic school to the Marines, he said you can eat steak and eggs 3 meals a day, and your hair will just start falling out. Blubber is the only thing that will give you enough calories to get through the winter and not, suffer some sort of detriment. So a lot of the guys at the beginning, they're like, "Oh my God, I ain't never gonna do that." And so they've been up here about 3/4 of the way through the winter. They'll sit down and gnaw on blubber all day and think it's the greatest thing ever invented. So you actually get a taste for it. Oh, cool, Ron. You got one of the 2250s. Awesome. Great knife. Jeff Donnelly, hello. Skipper. Yep, true. Badger, hello to Oregon. Um, yeah, they found out, the mountain men found out that one of the common things you could get out in the mountains, hares and rabbits, snow sheep, especially in the winter. And that was all they were eating. And they were starving to death eating all the rabbit they could, because rabbit meat is actually so lean, and the body in that kind of cold will exhaust its fat reserve. And you're still eating and drinking and eating till you're full. And you're leaning out and leaning out and leaning out, and then your internal organs start shutting down because they need the energy level that just isn't there from the food. After a while, the amount of energy you're getting out of digesting the rabbit almost equals the amount of energy it takes to digest the rabbit. So it's a losing proposition, just like eating popcorn. Plain old popcorn, you can eat all you can eat, and it takes more energy to digest than you get out of it. So you're actually starving to death. Let them eat all the popcorn they won't eat. That's real cool. Yeah, Donald. Yeah, rabbit fever. Grouch's son nearly died of rabbit fever from a deer. He had shot a buck that had kind of wandered out in broad daylight, and he was in the process of cleaning, and he nicked himself, and he got the blood in the gut by accident. And he developed a raging fever, was horribly sick. They knew it was something wrong, and they tried, the hospital that is, tried to identify it, couldn't figure out what was going on. Grouch finally said, "Pick him for rabbit fever." He said, "Yeah, but it was a deer. He wasn't cleaning rabbits." He said, "Check it." And sure enough, it was rabbit fever. A deer had somehow got it on him or got it. And it nearly killed his son. They just barely saved him. That was his son, Kenny, because of rabbit fever. Gordon Dixon, have you heard of a deer having blue tongue? Exactly what is it? As I understand it, it's a bacterial infection that gets into the soft tissues of the mouth and etc. Spreads down to the wind tunnel and etc. Swells and etc. And it starves them for blood. That's reason the tongue turns blue, because it's actually starving the blood capillaries from getting there. It'll rot, you know. The flesh dies, it turns necrotic, and it kills animals. Turmeric, turmia. That's close I'm going to get tonight. Woo. We need rain down here bad. It's, like I said, we barely had a little mist come over today. We need 2 or 3 days of rain because the pollen is just hanging. It's in the air. And it's been cooler. That's been great. We're down from the, high 90s. 101 was 80% humidity. We're down. And the next week, it's supposed to be highs in the 80s and lows in the 60s. Fantastic. But we need rain to clear the air out, because you'll blow your nose and it's pollen. That's all it is. Good evening, Bear. Bear's in the house. Tim Funk, good evening. Yeah. Randy, scurvy was a big problem for a long time, not just on sailors, but people going west in wagon trains and stuff. Scurvy was a real problem. They didn't understand what caused it. And now, today, we know that they need, vitamins A, etc. They need citrus, they C, and all like that to prevent scurvy, but they didn't know back in them days. So. It'll kill. Good evening. Thanks for coming by. Brett Johnson. I've kicked up cow chips and done myself something similar to that, because it was a job site. I couldn't go far, and it was dried up right there, and I knew it'd burn. And I stuck 3 long spikes in the ground, put me up a pile, get it going, and set a canteen cup on it and heat it up. Coffee one time. Like I said, you're just burning fresh grass. That's all it is. Yep, the Bear's Always cookbook. He's working on it right now. K-Town, good evening. Anthony Grimes, good evening then. Thank you for coming. Yeah, Jeff, the Huntsman is a little bit cheaper and does 90% of the work. You know, I just fell in love with the Fieldmaster, but I understand. Like we all live in the real world, and 28 sounds a lot better than 43. So I fully understand that. Grey Wolf, yeah, was ginger beer was too. John Hunter, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Just I don't know. Maybe people eat sawdust bread before. How desperate is the time? Is a question. Brett Johnson. Anybody know what the correct size of round ball to be using a 20 gauge trade gun? Usually 590 or 595, depending on how thick the patch. I would err on the side of a little too small because I can always put a thicker patch in. But if you want to just spitball it where there's no patch, you drop it down and you got a true 600 bore, great. But I'm here to tell you, very few of them have a true 600 bore. And you'll start that ball and go a third way and it'll wedge in because there's a little hump or something in the barrel. It's just better to go undersized and use a thicker patch. So I would recommend a 590 and then just put a normal size patch on it. If that doesn't seem to work right, then go up something like a denim patch. Go to Goodwill and pick up old used blue jeans for $1 or $2 each and just cut them up, make patches out of them. That's what we used to do, and it worked very well. Todd, yeah, me too, brother. I wish it would. Y'all didn't get to go much kayaking this year, did you? Because rivers have been down. We ain't had no rain. John Hunter, yes, sir. I've seen Mount Karen's video. And makes videos and he hopes that when he does it, that the people will come gang up on him and he'll get views. So when you click and make a comment, if you love him or hate him, it still pays him. So he's kind of like Jerry Springer. I wish him well. I hope he does whatever, but he's just looking for somebody to get. Gordon Dixon, Blackie, have you shot a muzzleloading 10 gauge? I had a double barrel Paradisoli 10 gauge for like 12 years and loved it. Shot a 710, I think it was. It was either a 7.0 or a 710 round ball in mine for a solid shot. And then I did buckshot, bird shot, etc. But yeah, loved it. I could load down. It was light as a 20 gauge, for taking small game, and I could take it all the way up and hammer something large with it. It would poleaxe a deer at 40 yards. I mean, just it like you'd see the shock wave in the chest cavity when you'd hit it. One of them big round ball, the whole side, all the ribs would just flex in from that impact. It was really impressive. John Hunter, no problem, brother. But that's the game he's playing. If you'll look down through his playlist, he's attacked just about anybody with a name. And the one he did to me was like 3 months ago, and I think he had like 1,000 views in 3 months. So it's you know. Yeah, Todd, that in the early spring, I thought it was gonna be a wet year, to be honest with you. And then Usually we got June and you had that rain every day. Well, it didn't happen. May it started drying up, and by 1st June it was just nothing. All right, Bertie, evening, Blackie. What would you recommend someone bring hunting deer at a minimum if they were going to be far from the house, say 5 miles from the house? Well, some sort of haversack with a 10 C's in it, just in case. Someone back home is your ghost rider that knows how long you're going to be gone and knows where to send help if you're not back in time. You got a phone that you'll check in saying I'm going in, and I'll check in saying I'm coming back out or I'm out, so they know what's going on. You take at least a small skinning knife to be able to process the deer if you're going to feel good it right there. A good hank of rope that I can drag with or attach it some way to get it out easily. Bug repellent, of course, and just basic gear beyond that. You know, if it's going to be a drag it for 5 years, I would take some sort of sled, wheelbarrow, or whatever. At least take it part of the way. You know, like if I'm going to be hunting on the far side of this ridge, I'd kind of cache it on this side of the ridge, excuse me, and then walk over to the other side and go hunt. That way, if I did take that big deer, I didn't have far to go get back to the wheelbarrow to bring it back out, as opposed to doing the whole 5 miles back out carrying it. Just my thoughts. Have you ever used radial ball bearing in a wood block for your ball bearing and bow drill fire? Yes. I've also used the bearing for a skateboard before, skateboard wheel. It works very well too. There you go, Bear. John Hunter's wanting to collaborate right there, dude. You've got the recipes, and we asked before you got in. Somebody wants us to meat canning this fall, so be thinking about the kitchen. We're going to be doing the canning. Yes, Randy, come on in. K-Town, Blackie, in a typical outing, what is in your cordage bag? I have about 30 to 50 feet of number 36 bank line, and then I have several of the twist ties. I have several of the bushcraft zip ties hanked up in a daisy chain. I have four of the 6 foot toggles that have the toggle on it that I can hook and anchor, secure bags, make quick lashings, tripods, etc. And then I have a 30-foot length cord, or 20 foot, 20 foot for the long line that's got a single toggle on it that'll handle for all the big stuff. So that's what I'm carrying at any time. Now there may be other sundries mixed in, but that's what I know is in my haversack at any time, and usually that'll handle 9% of what I need. Gordon, Blackie, I have found trapping coyote to be among my favorites. Is there any animals that you would like to trap? When I was trapping, I was never a trapper. I was out there setting traps to kill possums and coons and stuff like for food. And so there isn't anything I can point to that I would really, really like to trap, to be honest. It was never my thing. It was just an expedited way to get meat. At that time, there just wasn't any market for the fur, and I was mentioning getting um, that, and it was a couple of years after I had stopped doing that. But I got friends with a game warden, and we were talking about trapping, and I said something about using a 110 conibear, and says you can't use that in Alabama unless it's for a water set. I went, really? He said, yeah, you can't use a 110 conibear in anything but a water set legally in Alabama. Oh, that's good to know. He said, what, you were using a 110 to take coons and possums and everything? I went, no idea what you're talking about. You know, it's crap, you know. I didn't understand that was only used in water traps. I just set it up like a rat trap and took care of coons and possums, stuff like that. That was ignorance, useful ignorance. But that's 48 years ago. So I think the statute of limitations run out. Like this isn't applicable because of weight, but have you ever used an old tire ramp modified for outdoor cooking pot? It can be done. Yeah, especially for a station camp or something. We used to make hunting camps or winter camps because down here in my neck of the woods, if you built a structure out there in the woods and left it for any length of time and you come back, it had snakes in it, it had everything. You didn't want to go in it. So we'd go out about the first frost and we'd go to a place and we'd pick up poles in, use a couple of existing trees, and we'd take rolls of tar paper and make a little cabin. And things like you're talking about, taking the tire, roll it out there, and leave it there. So we had a way to boil in a fire pit, and we'd dig a sump well. You know, we'd have things like that. I'd bring in a 50 cal ammo can, solid full of rice, and we would cache it or hide it in a tree or bury it in the ground with a cover over it so it would stay safe. And we get out there and open up and get out, and so we'd have resources in camp. And then when the season was over, we take the tar paper down and just leave the poles and take our resources back out if we weren't coming out here to camp during the year. But yeah, things like that are using them to becoming those. Using trash is just recycling, repurpose it. Man, I can't tell you how many times I've raided an old car lot, you know, junkyard, and said, look, I just need some stuff. Can I go in and I'll pay for what I find? And find the cross member that held up a transmission, and that would become heated up and bent, become fire dog in the fireplace, you know, and just whatever, you know. I repurpose anything, give me enough time, I'd find a use for it. But we were poor, and so when you're poor, you get creative. Billy Bird, I understand. I really do. It's not for everybody. And every animal I ever took in my life, I felt bad about it. And my granddaddy taught me as a little boy, you pray for that animal right then. You thank him for his sacrifice, and you thank the Lord for it, and you thank the animal, you pray for the animal, and his next life is a lot better life. You know, but we were feeding the family. We weren't out here for sport. This was food. And that's the reason I don't hunt that much anymore, to be honest, because I don't need food. And those days, and now I've got to the age, I'd rather see it alive running around than I would shooting it. But life got tough. Before I hear my family cry from hunger, I will, by God, watch me. Those skills have got a little dust on them, but I still know how to do it. And if we had to feed the little one, feed the family, you can bet I could figure it out again. John Hunter, the next haversack run is probably going to be in November. I am doing a run, but some people had signed up that when I went to them and said, okay, here's your heads up for this run, they bought the whole run. There was nothing left for me to make an announcement. So the next run will be starting in November. And so that's the game plan at this time. David, do you do any blacksmithing work? I have done very childlike. I I can make S hooks and things to nail on the wall to hold things, racks, stuff like that. I can make a fire steel. That's about the limit of mine. Now, Bear has done actual blacksmithing. He was actually a reenactor at a large area as the blacksmith, so he has a lot more skill than I do. You know. Worm Wrangler. I came across a green oak limb I'd like to carve into a kukris, but don't have a hook knife. Any ideas? Remove the wood with the Dremel tool. Get your real aggressive and router it down and get the basic shape. Depth of the cut and everything. That one of them Dremel tools will just cut right on in and make the basic shape. Once you got it hogged out of that, then you're going to have to find a hook knife to be the perfect tool to do it. But you got to come back and smooth it out on the inside and outside. But if you don't have a hook knife, and to be honest, it looks great and it's a great skill, but I'm going to tell you in a heartbeat, most of the European woods are softer than the American woods. Even though they're calling it a hardwood, it's like a hard pine. And their axe saws and knives and stuff are kind of set up for that. And when you get one of our American woods that's got a little more toughness to it, you're going to dull a hook knife. And I've used hook knives and made kukris and stuff. And I did one traditionally where I carved it out every step of the way, every bit of it. Did a living history event over the course of a week. My hand was so sore I could barely close it from doing it. And I had to resharpen that thing probably a dozen times. It was a good quality one. But I got it done. And then the next one I made, I took a Dremel tool and routed that sucker out where it's 90%. And then I sanded and shaped and made it work. But if the object of the game is to have a kukris, get a Dremel tool. If the object of the game is to learn the skill to do it with a hand tool, then get a hand tool and get you a block of sugar pine and start learning. And then go from there. Eddie Lewis, hello. Yeah, Randy, exactly. Mike Simmons did that, made a 2-tier fire cauldron that he brings to events that works really, really good. Richard Hayes, what's the estimated price on the next run of haversacks? I have not had to go up, so they're still $85. Even though shipping and everything else is, yeah, I've been able to keep it at that. So $85 shipping to anywhere in the U.S. Is for the haversacks. I've been lucky. Gray Wolf, yes, you can burn it out. Put the coal in, use air, scrape and scrape and scrape. It's slow, but yes, it can be done. Well, Bushcraft Preacher, glad you're home. Thank you very much for showing in. I hope you get feeling better soon. Sleep well. Ronald, yes, I have taken a 9-volt battery in steel wool and also the old time chewing gum wrappers were aluminum foil. You could use that as well to start a fire. I don't know if they're still used that way. They may have changed, but steel wool would work, and you could also use that. And you can take a little fine wire. We used to take electrical cord and cut it, and you'd have multiple small hair fine strands. We'd take a strand out and wrap it up in the tinder and then touch the two leads to it, and it would make it a red hot core that quick, hair fine, and set off the tinder. John Hunter, what's the next product in line? Tell us your secret. Um, I've had several people request that something I had talked about was a set of expansion pouches to go on the outside of the Blackbird rucksack, Nighthawk rucksack, excuse me. that would be roll topped, and that way they could come off and be gather bags to go on the belt, as well as to be extra pouches to go on the outside of the nighthawk. There's 3 sets of loops on that where you could put 3 of those pouches, and it would have the same capacity of an Alice pack then. But the advantage of, if I need it in winter camping, I need the bulk, so it's got to be a bigger sleeping bag, bigger clothes. Well, that's going to fill up the main body like that. The outer pouches would then hold the food, the stove, and etc. And as I consume food, I could condense it down and get rid of the outside pack. So, but I designed it so that the bag is the same volume basically as an Alice pack main body, and these outside pouches will attach to it and be roll top. And I've talked to Jay about it, and we're probably going to do it after the first year. We're going to get serious about it. I had a prototype in mind. I'm going to take my little bitty sewing machine and make up a couple prototypes, test out the theory this winter, because that's when I need it. Excuse me, in the winter. And once it seems to work out, then I'll talk with Jay, and he'll make a refined, real, couch with wax canvas that'll match the bag. And but I've got a design up here. That's the next thing I got coming. I believe in a modular system. I wanted you to be able to buy one rucksack and expand out for the winter and reduce it down for the summer. Just buy a couple of extra accessory packs where you buy them if you need them. You don't if you don't. I don't want a bag that's got all these extra pocket bells and whistles of something I'll never carry or never need. I prefer it to be modular so I can add, kind of like a model system, what I need, and what I don't need, I take it off. And that's my idea. Yes, K-Town. Canterbury recently showed, I believe, one of those axes like that. It becomes a hatchet full size by the handle. Looks good. Seems to be fairly rock solid. Might be interested in trying one of those out. That would be very, very nice, especially in a vehicle kit where I could condense it down to smaller. Or if I needed a full size axe, click, click. If I don't need a hatchet, click, click. Hey, looks very interesting. I don't know the price or anything. I just saw Dave's video. But hopefully I'll get to a chance to actually handle one. Good night, Jeff. Thank you for coming in. Mm-hmm. You're wrong. Today, with the available communications that we've got, light years ahead of what we had years ago. And so back in our days, it had been CB. But today, you've got shortwave and all kinds of direct, ham stuff, small, portable, handy, easy enough, low enough power consumption that I can have solar power recharge batteries to keep it going in the field and have communication way out yonder. Yeah. Today, they've got a real advantage that we used to not have. Thanks, Eric. Have a good night. Yep. The USMC assault pack, very good pack, and the Corpsman's bag, yes. Heiko, okay. Or Hiko? Hiko. I hear you. Gray Wolf, the old scatchet, yeah, where you screwed the handle in, the inside of the eye was threaded, so you just press a green stick in there. Work a couple of hits, and you'd have to screw it in tighter. Yeah, those actually popped up in the 70s. I remember when they were making the rounds, they had a little belt carrier where you could use it as a knife, use it as a skinning tool, use it like an ulu as a skinning tool, and just screw a handle into it, scatchet. Last chance. Thanks. I've been in talking with several. Um, I had a manufacturer contact me a while back, and he wanted to talk to me, and we talked on a chat thing like this, and he wanted to buy the Blackbird idea and the haversack design, and wanted to buy the Nighthawk design and my whole arrangement. He wanted to buy it from me, and I went, no. And he went, well, Dada, we could, no. You'll send it to China, have some piece of crap made, and send it back. No. Not doing it. That's my design. Everybody knows it's my design, you know. And so, we ain't doing it. And he thought I was being a fool for not jumping at it. You thought I was a dumb redneck, didn't you? Yeah, I get that. I'm not designing this bag to make money. I am making a little bit of money, to be honest. I didn't do that. I wanted to make a bag for woodsmen. Like when you say the Roy Croft frame, he came up with that. He probably saw other forms of it, but he's the one that put his name on it. I'm not trying to become a legend or something. That's not my intention. But it's a legacy I want to leave to the woodsman. This idea of a haversack that's got all these bells and whistles. The idea of a rucksack that is modular, but made out of really good durable material. And therefore buy it once and use it 20, 30 years. That's my goal. That's what I want to leave. I've had people from all over the world contact me and say, I saw one of your haversacks, or I've seen your rucksack, and asked at an event in England to have a big bushcraft event. And I had somebody contact me from England, and he said, I saw this haversack and was interested in it. He told me about you, and I'd like to purchase one. And I have sold haversacks across the globe because it's a little bit different. So the Blackbird, that's my idea. And I want the people that actually go out and for real, they're not playing. They want to go out and have the wood skills. They want a piece of gear. I want it for them. Really, that's what I want to hand to them. Because Blackie don't want to become rich on it. I could have sold it and had enough to not have to worry about anything for a couple of years because what he was offering. But the second he offered that much money, which I wasn't asking, but the second he offered, I knew he saw a market and he's going to take it and run with it. He ain't doing it because he loves the profit. He thinks he can buy it, he can mass produce it and throw it out yonder and make himself rich. No. I want that to happen. Somebody could still fake it. Somebody go ahead. But I'm not going to help them. You know what I mean? Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Eric, good luck elk hunting with it. It'll blend in. I wanted a color that blend in. Put some Vicks behind your lower ear. Okay. Still got it on my finger. Oh, Billy, but no, ain't no bye-bye Blackbird. Ain't doing it. Oh, Jeff Donnelly, how many versions of the Blackbird did you go through before you settled on this one? At least 8. I can tell you when the first seeds of the Blackbird happened, it was pouring rain. And I was under a canvas tarp at a Living History reenactment, and it had been pouring rain for 3 days. And my haversack that I was using at that time was hanging on the pole in the middle, holding up the tarp. And it had gotten wet so many times over the last couple of days. And I went to reach into the bag to get something out of it, and it was a little too far. I kind of bared down to get my hand in there, and the strap tore off of it. And I don't mean the stitching let go. I mean a hunk of the tore out. And as I had to repair that, I got to thinking about, with the strap loose, and that began the idea of the strap being able to detach on one side. And then bit by bit, I made little refinements, and they were 8 distinct in my mind haversacks that I made to use in living history, or I used in my bushcraft before I ever, got this. In fact, I had kind of got out of it. Remember, I got out of living history when I started doing videos in 2008. I'd been out of living history like 5 years. And so the first haversack I show you is when I had gotten Dixie Gun Works, and I had to dye it black before I let y'all see it, because it was just so dirty and nasty and coffee stained, and it looked rough, and I didn't want to put that on tape, so I modified it. But even back then, I was thinking about doing a haversack, and for me, and I made little things for me all along. But when I got with Jason, and Jason took my design, I drove to Kentucky, went up there to him, and Jason took my design, and his skilled lady that is the queen of the sewing machine, in about 4 hours whipped up the first prototype. And Todd Gibson knows where the very, very, very first prototype is, because Leslie Gibson, his cousins, got it. She won it at one of my events. I did giveaways, and I gave away the prototype. And it's got a big plastic zipper in it. It don't have the brass zipper in it. And that was the very first prototype. And now there is the one that was made by Jason, which had the canvas strap. Then there's the first one made by Jay, which has the woven strap, which is the 2. And then today we have the nylon strap, because we couldn't get those woven straps. After COVID, it got just about, they're talking about it 2 years before you could get it. You can put your order in today, we'll take your money, but we won't be running that for 2 years. So yeah, we had to go to this. So I call it the Mark III, because it's what we've had to do to adjust the design. Same design, but had to tweak materials a little bit because of what was available. That's still today. You order a certain color and it may show up a little lighter or a little darker. And this last run of haversack is a little bit lighter. I kind of like it. It looks like it's weathered, but just a little lighter than the color. We'd said the same color, but this is what actually dyed. You know what I mean? But we take it one day at a time. Okay, now start back up here and shut up and start reading again. Wrong. Yeah, the little bitty hatchet is always good for the what if, especially in a vehicle where you got to cut stuff out, be able to cut stuff under the tires, get out of mud and stuff. Yeah, Wayne, I always talking about, I did photography for a while, and all the things you have, bags and stuff, you have to come together. You end up with your own custom stuff a lot of times. Gordon, how do you feel about the Helicon haversack? It's a nice haversack. It really is. Looks to be well made. Randy, any way to convert a cap to Flintlock? Just kidding, but never thought I would see the day's cat's bees. Yes, you actually can. Sometimes you can unscrew the flash chamber, flash protector hole in the gun, and a drum will screw and change the lock into a percussion lock. Dixie for years sold a gun that was convertible, the mountain rifle. There was 2 locks, and all you had to do was unscrew the drum and screw in the touch hole and put the flint up there, and it was a flint. Screw it out and screw the drum in, put the percussion on, and yeah, you could convert it back and forth just to have 2 locks. Billy Bird, and my YouTube and Facebook, somebody is selling a hat very similar to this right now. I made mention of it, it's made to look like the hat that Sean Connery wore in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and they've got them on sale now. It's popping up all over Facebook. And I point out that it would be very similar to my hat. But you're going to have to put 30 years in to get all the patina on it. Okay. Waxed canvas in a 12 by 12. Check out Panther Primitives. They make waxed oilcloth. That's waxed canvas duck in a 12 by 12. Check with them. Panther Primitive. Just get a 12 by 12 tarp, fold it, and sew it from there. Oh, Randy, yeah. Caps were everywhere, and they were like $1.10. Now, whew. You know, percussion caps. It's cheaper for me to shoot my 45 SCP than it is to shoot my cap and ball now because of the caps. I've got powder, I've got lead, but the price of the caps, you know, I can buy 9mm or 45 for equivalent price. So, well, Bud, hello. Thank you for being a fan. Buckeye 80, in winter camping. I'm planning on a camp thus far. Every month of the year I have camped. Now, I will have to admit, in June and July, I just went up on the hill to the woodlot and swung up my hand one night about 11 o'clock because it's just so hot. And I'm waiting for it to cool off. But I camped at Duggar Mountain whenever it was 26 down at the bottom of the mountain. And we're 2,000 feet higher. So we figured it was about 6 up there on the mountain that morning. And I was camping out in my one wind hammock and underquilt. And I was warm. Yeah. K-Town, Alaska is a different place. What I teach applies generally, but a woodsman in Alaska is going to have different skill sets than I do because 8 months out of the year, you're in snow. At the same time, a plainsman out in Kansas or Nebraska or something have different skill sets than either one of us because they're open all the time. They don't have mountains or trees or hardly anything to block the wind. So they got a different way of doing stuff than we do. So that's one of the things. I wish we could have like a congress of woodsmen, a gathering to share ideas and everything else on skill sets and stuff like that and show how we do things differently from where we're at. Because people in Alaska is going to have a lot different skill sets than me. But at the same time, there'll be a lot of overlap too. Donald, I heard you can make your own caps. Yes. There are Tapo cap. You make out of aluminum drink can, and then you have to put a priming compound down in each one. It can be done, though. Becky, seen where the trip wire is made to shoot a 12 gauge flare. How do you feel about them? In a military application, okay. In our application, it goes poof and it's a flare. That flare will start a fire. That's a 3,000 degree flare. And so I just set the woods on fire. That's not good for anybody involved. I prefer security systems and stuff that alert me, but don't let the bad guy know that I'm alerted. If I want to make just a bang or something like that, I can rig up something that's going to make a lot of noise when they trip it. But like I showed where I take a yo-yo reel and turn it into a trip wire. and have it along the ground dragging a can of rocks behind it, making racket, you know, things like that. The 12 gauge flare, okay. Putting a 12 gauge in it ain't going to make it any better. It was an old thing they did years ago where they would take a rat trap, drill a hole in it, put a 12 gauge shell in it, and then put a thing on the rat trap so it hit the primer and detonate it. It just blows to pieces. It's a giant firecracker. You know, they'd cut the shell, take the shot out of it, put double the powder in it, and put tape over the top of it so it'd go bang and make a big loud bang. Don't do that. It's illegal, and but it would make one heck of a noise. But you know, then the bad guy knows, hey, there's a trip flare, or somebody's down here because of the trip. Through failure, we succeed. I would like to. I don't think they've ever made it, but they do. I would like to get a 209 nipple that'll fit onto a musket, because I've got a musket that I just got, and finding wing musket caps. Dang, I didn't want a car payment. I just wanted some caps, you know. Azrael, not anymore. No, we're still doing the classes, but I don't have any further information at this time for the Civil War classes. We're worked out who's doing what on the classes. We're just ironing out little details. I will do one probably next week that I'll list all of our classes that we're going to be doing. And hopefully, if I get some pictures from James Bender of the actual site, we'll be doing that. Chris, how's the poor man's RV coming along? Actually, it's down right now because of a stupid switch. At the top of the clutch, there's a button. When you push the clutch in, it presses and allows the ignition to work, because if you don't, it would make it where you could crank it in gear. And a stick shift in gear, when that starter engages, it ain't going to spin nothing. It's just going to tear up a starter. So they do it that way. Well, that little switch usually goes out about 5 years, and it's gone out. So now you pushing the clutch, turn the key, you don't get nothing. And I'm trying to find that damn switch. None of the parts houses got one. They say can't find it. The question is, do they even make it anymore? Well, it is a 33-year-old truck. So I got a friend of mine, and I said, look, we may have to get under there and just hot wire the sucker, bypass it somehow. But that's something. Besides that, I may be taking it to camp when I go for my camp out coming up in October down there in Geneva. I may just take the redneck camper if it's back up and running then. But that's the plan. John Ladder, Blackie, at what temp do you start using your underquilt? Usually for me, in the 50s. I'm okay down into the 60s just wrapping up, because I can tuck my cover. I use it like a quilt. I tuck it behind me, on top of me, and I just pull out and let it drop behind my back. And I'll only have a strip about that wide right here that gets a little cool. But I sleep on my side, so I'm warm front, back, and etc. And I'll just put a pad underneath me in the hammock. But about 50 is when I'll go ahead and put the underquilt on. In the 50s. So if it's going to be 58, I'll go ahead and put that underquilt on. Because if I wake up cold and that shoulder's hurting or whatever, nothing's going to make it stop. It's going to keep me awake. Excuse me. Yeah, now is bear defense. I'm pretty sure that would spook off a bear, a loud noisemaker like that, you know. But I had a friend for years that was a bush pilot up there. You know what he carried? Firecrackers. Them little bitty, small little bitty finger firecrackers. He'd kept them in a thing in his shirt pocket. He'd pull them out, hit him with a lighter, and throw them out there. And the bear will take off. Now, he'll also admit that he went to throw a pack of them one time, that he came out the back of a hangar, and there was a big sow grizzly, and he took them out and lit them and threw them, and it kind of hung on his finger. Instead of it going that way, it kind of hooked and ended up over here to the side. So when it went bang, 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 the bear didn't run away. The bear ran at him and ran through the hanger. So it can, 99 out of 100 bears will run from you, but they don't come in that order. Gray wolf, yeah, they kind of get, once they're kind of scorchy, they don't think so much about eating you. Sharp. I do not have the baby bird, but man, that is a good looking knife, ain't it? Hopefully, I'll get to camp with William this coming year. Yes, James Singer, neutral safety switch. That's what it's called. Oh yeah, Chris. When you pull out the switch, you look in the back of the switch and see if it's male or female. If it's male, then you know in the main socket is going to be female, and so you just put a jumper in there and tie it with tape. I mean, considering this truck is 33 years old, still runs as good as it does, 800 something thousand miles on it, and it fires right up, runs 70, gets 26 miles a gallon, uses a quart of oil per month. Yeah, I'm happy with it. And so but the fact that switch has survived this long, it's time to bypass it. Like we just get under there and put a jumper in and fire it up. Yeah, Randy, I have never been to Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Every time I've drove by it, I'm going somewhere and I don't have time to stop. And I'm about determined this coming year I'm going to make a pilgrimage up there. Although I was asked by somebody with a big name if I'd be willing to come up and hang with them at the whatever day they hold. So I may end up doing that. We'll see. Carlton, what would you recommend? Blackie, what would you recommend in a Hawken type rifle? Okay, for me, Lyman's Great Plains rifle. It had the look much more like original than the CVAs or etc. I understand they're still produced under a different name. They're not by Lyman anymore, but whatever the parent company was, they still produce it. And I believe it's I love Muzzleloading. He's got a channel, and he talks about building one and etc. They're very good guns. What my first really good muzzleloading hawking was a Lyman Great Plains in '54, and I know where it's at right now. The family still that got it from me still got it and still hunt with it. So yeah, once in a blue moon. There's two now. One's ridiculously expensive and made overseas, and the ones that still had the Lyman name on it, it was at like $600. So you're going to look around, but that's one I'd recommend looking for. Carlton, yes, those Nissan hard bodies are just fantastic. Finally wore out a transmission a few years ago and had to swap transmissions. The engine's never been built, never had to go into the engine. I finally swapped 2 years ago the fuel injectors in it. Of course, I do a tune-up and swap out spark plugs and wires and distributor cap. Yeah, but never had to go inside. I've had to put 3 alternators on it one starter, and 4 water pumps, and a radiator. But besides that, and of course, built in brakes over time. Besides that, the sucker runs great, fires right up. I got no problem. Part of me wants to take it back on long trips, and drive it all the way up to Ohio or whatever, because I drove all over the country on that truck. I drove to New York to go to big events and stuff with it. So part of me wants to do it. The other part of me goes, sooner or later, the day is going to come. She's going to grenade because she's just so old. At point X, a valve's going to let go, or a timing chain's going to break, or something. And the thought of me being hundreds of miles from home with my old truck, and not the inconvenience to me, it's how am I going to get it home? You know what I mean? Because I ain't leaving it. Dude, that's part of the family. I'll go buy another used vehicle and run it, but I might have to abandon that somewhere. But I ain't abandoning that old Nissan. That's part of the family. Somebody told me one time, so, well, what happens if you wreck it? I said, well, if I get hit in the front end, I'm going to cut the front part off of it, leave the cab, leave the back, and turn it into a towed behind trailer and turn it into a redneck camper. It's part of the family. I've definitely got my miles off of it. Yeah, Carlton, it's the quality of the gun, it's worth it. It had a coil spring, mainspring in the lock. The number one break point of that design, any design, is the spring. That coil spring eliminates that. They had good triggers on them. They shot accurately for years. That was the one you saw on the target lines. It was the CVA Hawken, Thompson Center Hawken, which doesn't look like a historic gun, but it was a very accurate gun. But if you wanted a living history gun that was believable when you pulled it out and said it's a Hawken, the Lyman Great Plains, by far. It was, especially you do a little bit of antiquing on it, maybe train out a butt plate or something, or a trigger guard here or there. Yeah, you had to look close, not tell that ain't an original. Buzz, yeah, I'm going to put a long block into it. Yeah. Whenever she goes, I'm not getting rid of her. I will definitely look at putting a long block in. The good news is those 2400 engines are everywhere and they're bulletproof. And I know right now 3 that era trucks sitting behind a barn somewhere that's on somebody I know's land that all got rear-ended and there was nothing wrong with the engines. And they're just sitting there. And I told one of them, I said, times get tough. I may need the engine out of that truck. And said, for you, it's $200. Come get it when you're ready. So life get tough. I thought about going and getting that engine just as a backup. You know what I mean? So, oh yeah, Gordon. Yeah, 3 on a tree. Yep, love it. Uh, would a thermarest mat take the place of a hammock underquilt? If you put it inside the hammock and lay on it, yes. If you try to put it on the outside of it, no, it's too rigid and it's going to let cold air in too many places. So, but you can put a thermos mat inside the hammock and lay on it, and you do pretty good that way. That can do like an underquilt. But hooking it up to the outside hammock, it's a little too rigid. Sorry. Well, guys, that's been an hour and 45 minutes. I think we're going to call it quits. I got to go clear my head out. This pollen's getting me pretty bad. My eyes are watering so bad it's hard to see. Guys, I've really enjoyed it, and I plan on next week doing my live. Now, if I change my mind, I'll post and let y'all know, because remember, I'm talking about taking a week off in there. If I can get ahead far enough where I can do it, and take the week off and get some other stuff done before I have my big month next month. I'm going to be running all the time. But guys, thank you very much for all your comments, all the support and everything. Really look forward to this every week. And so till next time, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Y'all have a good night.